Who instigated this? Who funded this? Who ordered this?
What about Israel? They're trying to take over the country.
Assad was their friend. Somebody's instigating this. And they have a plan to mobilize the Alawis against this government to create a crack between the Sunnis and the Alawite.
Media reporting on this. That's why people are like, oh, why is it being underreported?
The Americans are supporting an ex-Al-Qaeda, ISIS guy to be the leader of Syria. Why would the United States support such a person?
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to I3 Pulse. Thousands dead in Syria in sectarian clashes. Is this a plot to take down Jolani, or has he lost his grip completely? Is Syria being carved up for foreign domination? And with the US negotiating with Hamas, is this the end game for Netanyahu? Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Assalamu.
How's it going?
Good.
So, Sheikh, I've seen some crazy videos, right? People are saying that Jolani is just massacring all the minorities. We're seeing all these clashes in Latakia and Tartus, the birthplace in Latakia of Al Assad regime, and a Greek member of European Parliament saying over 7,000 Christians have been killed. So what's happening and why now?
So what happened is that security forces from the Syrian government, new Syrian government, were killed and slaughtered by by the Assad regime's forces, who are still basically roaming around the coast. This coast is where basically the Alawis live, mostly. The majority of the Alawis basically live in this coast. That's their original area. And they call them Al-Fulul. Al-Fulul is basically the remnants of the Assad regime forces. So they trapped some of these security forces for the new government. They slaughtered many. They actually kidnapped many. And this was a reaction to what happened. Was this manufactured? We don't know right now. Is there basically remnants of the? Yes, there is. Is there weapons with the Alawites? Yes, there is. Who instigated this? Who funded this? Who ordered this? This is what we don't know right now, right? Ahmed Al Sharaa accused a country. He says basically a foreign country that they instigated this. Hezbollah was also accused of supporting this and so forth. They said, oh, there is the connections between some of the remnant leaders and Hezbollah. Hezbollah denied any of that. And to be honest, I would not think Hezbollah would do this, because right now Hezbollah in a very bad situation. They'd rather basically have a good relationship with this regime instead of that. So
what about Israel? They're trying to take over the country.
But anyway, who does this benefit? Or is this basically, would this be a negative thing against Ahmed Al Sharaa's government? After we saw what happened, no. It seems he's utilizing this very well. I think he's using the security forces to unify the Sunnis and also gaining their trust. The Sunnis of Syria for the last 50 years have been oppressed to the max. And I'm always surprised by many of these leftist commentators on YouTube.
Jackson Hinkle, all these guys,
all these guys, without naming them, but they're always supporting Assad until now. I mean, bro, you don't even know this country, okay? Maybe one of them is half Syrian, one of these, but I don't know if you lived there. Okay, that's number one. Number two, maybe you're ignorant about what happens in Syria, but after all the pictures from Saidnaya and so forth, you're still supporting the Assad. You're out of your mind. Sorry to say that. I want to say it like right now. These leftists, they just either you have an agenda. You don't care about the Syrian people. You don't care about justice. You basically love tyranny and massacres. The Assad regime slaughtered millions of people. There were people who were in jail for 50 years or whatever it is. So I don't know. I don't understand these people, subhanAllah. But anyway, on the side, this is on the side really. So what happened right now is the Syrian people now became more supportive of Ahmed Al Sharaa. The accusation of them committing massacres, wallahi, I cannot right now. I'm not sure if this is true or not. Okay, there's been lots of killings, and maybe Ahmed Al Sharaa allowed it. Again, to gain more support in the inside.
Because he's saying officially he's trying to investigate, see what happens.
Look, whatever he says basically is all gibberish for the media, to be honest. For the media, for his own status. So we just need to keep following, see what's happening now, because who instigated it, what's going to happen after. Look, there's two options. If somebody's instigating this, and they have a plan to mobilize the Alawis against this government, to create a crack between the Sunnis and the Alawite even further, but there has to be support that keeps coming. There has to be real support that keeps coming. You're gonna see the international community siding with the Alawis as a minority that's been that's been oppressed and so forth. But I haven't seen that. That's why basically.
Yeah, I'm
I think,
surprised. I haven't seen so much media reporting on this. That's why people are like, "Oh, why is it being underreported?" and
no,
stuff.
no, it's
Yeah.
been suppressed on purpose. Again, the United States. That's why we said when we said that Ahmed Al Sharaa is supported by the United States. Now we're seeing lots of stuff coming together. The Western media is not criticizing what happened, and so forth. But again, I'm not saying the massacres did happen. We need to see more information from the ground to understand what's happening right now. And I'm not denying that there might have been killing of civilian Alawites there. And again, this could be for the sake of strengthening the regime. Because see, people are angry. People have been criticizing Ahmed Al Sharaa for not taking revenge. There's a wide sector in the Sunnis in Syria who have been criticizing Ahmed Al Sharaa for not doing enough to get ex-Assadists or Assadists, like current Assadists, basically putting them through the court of law and getting justice back to the people who've been oppressed for the last 50 years. And that's been seen basically in multiple ways. Lots of Assadists are now basically in government and in positions of power, even in the army, roaming around, secularists. So I guess this could have been a move. Yes, could have been a move. Get the Syrian people now more supportive of Ahmed Al Sharaa himself.
So I'm going to throw a counter theory. I want to see what you think about it. We see Israel going in and just attacking and bombarding and literally just taking land, Syrian land. Now, isn't it possible that they could use this as a concept, saying that the minorities need to be protected? We have to go in and protect the Druze. We have to go in and protect the Alawis. We have to go in and protect these people from this oppressive terrorist and so on, right? So some people are saying that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so look, Israel did not really get much from the change in Syria. All what they see is an opportunity to take more land. Because subhanAllah, like who's the winner in what happened in Syria? The Americans. The Americans now basically they have a stable country is what they want. The Turks are also a winner because the Kurdish threat is gone, and they have a regime that was propped up by them, right? The third winner is, to be honest, now we can see that the third winner seems to be the Russians. The Russians are still there.
Yeah.
And they're negotiating now with the new regime, and they're saying nice things about the new regime, and they're like...
So we saw reports that the Russians said they're cooperating with the U.S. about this whole situation.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Oh, yeah, there was we didn't know that at the beginning.
Yeah.
So even though the Americans were setting a condition on the Syrian regime to kick out the Russians. But again, all this could be... Yeah. But the losers were definitely Hezbollah. The losers were Iran. And in Israel, I would say basically it's in between, right? Like they say that they were big loser. There was definitely they're big loser from not having the Assad. Assad was their friend. Everybody knows that right now. Basically, they're saying it out loud and they're publishing papers about it. The secret reports. So the Israelis were not really part of the game. They were just informed. This is what we're doing, right? So the Israelis are trying to make some gains, basically, trying to occupy a bigger part of Syria. And to do so, you need the Druze to stamp a request of the Israelis coming in. So the Druze are divided. Now, one impact of what happened basically to the Alawites in the coast is that the Druze now said, look, look, if we basically go with the Israelis a little bit more, it's dangerous because the Syrian government might hurt us. So they're like, no, we should keep Syria one piece, and we should be a little bit more loyal to the regime and stuff like that. Also, Walid Jumblat, who's the head of the Druze in Lebanon, advised the Druze in Syria not to make a deal with the Israelis. But they're still split, and the Israelis are trying their best. They're trying to gain more lands and so forth.
On this point, can we foresee an intervention from Iran or to protect the Shias, or Russia to protect these guys, or is just that they're just gonna kind of be assimilated into the existing power structures?
I don't think so. First of all, Iran doesn't have anything. Iran cannot have anything in Syria. It's done. The Russians can, but if they do, they lose the port. I think they will have to make a deal with the government. They're more loyal to the government than anything else. That's why I don't think it's Russia who enabled this. I don't think it's the U.S. who enabled this. I don't think it's the Iranians who enabled this. So I don't know whose Sharia is referring to as the country. Could be Israel. Could be. Yeah, but the number of people that came into that reserve army under the leadership of the new Sharia administration.
You're saying after this situation happened?
After the situation, basically, there was a public call for people to volunteer to become part of the reserve army to cleanse the remnants of the Assad militias. Tens of thousands of Syrian men came to the service.
I did not impose mandatory conscription in Syria. Instead, I opted for voluntary enlistment. And today, thousands are joining the new Syrian army.
We're saying tens of thousands. People are saying, one of the leaders in the government, or at least associated with the Sharia movement, said 500,000 people.
Wow. So really rallying everybody around them.
Because see now, what happened is basically now the Sunnis in Syria rallied more around Ahmed Al Sharaa. This is all what happened basically right now. Could there basically be strings from the outside trying to push, a civil war or division of Syria? Again, a possibility. I don't think this is what's happening, because you don't do it this way. What you do is basically you train the whole Alawite sect together. And don't forget, the Alawites also were oppressed by the Assad regime in many cases. It's not as if basically they were living like kings. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm trying to say is if the goal was to really create a big civil war, you don't just basically give weapons to some little remnant groups and you do so. No, you actually militarize the whole sect, the whole community. The Alawites are 3 million people. You see what I'm saying? It's going to be hard because now the Sunnis are 25 million, maybe a little bit more even.
Is there a possibility as a kind of unintended consequence now? Okay, the Druze seem to be changing their rhetoric, but maybe the Alawis now may actually even organize more and fight back. And can Syria be the new Libya?
Definitely. This is definitely a possibility. But let's take the Libya question separately.
Yeah.
So what happened to the Kurds now? The Kurds, the leader of the Kurdish Qasad group, basically Democratic Forces,
SDF,
SDF, was taken on an U.S. Apache into Damascus to sign a deal with Ahmed Al Sharaa.
Yes.
What does that mean? That means the Americans pushed for this, and the reports are saying the Americans pushed for this deal for the Kurds to be under this new unified leader of Syria. Again, the United States is supporting Al Sharaa at every step of the way. When people basically ask why are we accusing Al Sharaa of being an agent, well, this is all what we see. The Americans are supporting an ex-Al-Qaeda, ISIS guy to be the leader of Syria and supporting him at every juncture of the path. You know what I'm saying? Maybe let's discuss why. Why would the United States support such a person? But for now...
But before that, just very quickly, because someone in the head would be thinking, okay, but then what about Israel just going crazy and doing things in Syria that we never thought that they would do? So does this not signal that there is a misalignment here? Because if he was America's boy...
Misalignment
then he would,
between what?
Like, for example, Israel. Like, if he was America's boy, wouldn't they kind of say, listen, like, let this guy build a stable country. What are you doing? Just trying to attack Damascus, and what are you doing there?
Okay, this is a very simple answer. We said many times that the Israelis, they rely on the support from the United States to continue to be who they are. And why? Because they understand that they are a strategic and vital interest for the Americans.
Yeah.
Right? We already said basically it's like a parent-child relationship. This child, the parents will never basically hurt the child. Right? They might, punish them like, oh, you have to, get spanked every now and then or whatever it is, but they'll never hurt the child. But when the child is rebellious, which is what's happening right now against their own parent, this is what we're seeing right now. The Israelis, they don't care about the American interest. The Israelis care about their own interest. The interest of the Americans, as we said earlier, and many times, is to create a stable area in this region, in this part of the Middle East. Not the whole Middle East, but this part of the Middle East. We see it on and again and again that basically the Americans want stability in this area. Why? Because in the United States, because Trump made a deal with Ibn Salman that if you want if you want us to support the United States through investments, and if you want us to also create this new economic corridor from India to Europe or to the Mediterranean, We need something in return. What is that in return? Well, number one, you need to solve the Palestinian problem in a way that's dignified. That's what they said exactly a couple of days ago. And they've said it many times, which is why, that's why basically my analysis has been set on that. This is specific demand from the Saudis that basically meshes very well with their interest and the interest of the Americans and the future strategic goals in the Middle East. Number two, they want the Iranian influence to be gone, right? That's it, and that's what's happening. Iran basically went back into its own little country. Sadly, they lost in Lebanon, they lost in Syria, they lost, and now they're losing in Yemen, they lose in Iraq. And you never know. Basically, they lose inside Iran from a nuclear weapons program perspective, which is Saudi Arabia and Israel want. The Trump administration wants to appease the Saudis, and the Israelis don't care about that. They're like, look, if you guys want us to have we want normalization, but we're not going to give you a Palestinian state. Number two, the Israelis don't care about all of this, right? They're like, okay, we want normalization, but we're not going to go give you a state for that. Number two, like, look, we don't give a darn about your little economic corridor. We have a strategic interest of becoming bigger Israel, greater Israel. We have greater Israel from the Nile to the Euphrates. And this is not about basic religious beliefs, by the way. I mean, some of them might have religious beliefs, but it's strategic. As a country, you want to expand to create more to gain more resources to become a bigger country. And this is in opposition to the United States interests. The United States wants to keep Israel within a specific borders. We said many times, and we're going to keep repeating that. Until now, we don't see change in the American foreign policy, which denies Israel the expansion that it's dreaming about. So right now, Israel said, look, we're going to take a few kilometers here and there in Syria. We're going to try to deal with the Druze. We're going to try. And I think all of this, to be honest, is against American interest. But what is the American response? We don't know. Sometimes the Americans basically let their child, take what they want sometimes. Like, look, take this, but shut your mouth.
And sometimes it also helps them because each time if you track each time they are going rogue, it's usually when they're forced to kind of go ahead with something that's not popular internally too. And they're just going like pushing phase 2 or ceasefire or this. And then just the guy just goes rogue and does something crazy. And then everyone forgets about what he's being forced to sign papers that he doesn't want to sign.
Yeah, but the Americans have to apply pressure.
Yeah.
It takes lots of time now from the Trump administration. Like, but this is a relationship. The relationship between Israel and the United States is lots of times there's misalignment in interest. But and that's why, going back to your question, the Americans can't go tell Israel, hey, just like treat our boy nicely. The Israelis like, the heck with you. We don't want. We want to get what we want. We want to threaten him because he might be a future threat for us. The Americans could give certain security guarantees to the Israelis, but they don't care about it. Like, we don't care about your guarantees. We want to take more land, and we'd rather even take Damascus if we can. But again, there's red lines by the Americans. But they keep pushing. But that's what negotiation is all about. Life is negotiations. The Israelis are going to continue to push, and the Americans are going to continue to push back until they reach a specific compromise.
So about the Kurds, you said that we saw the agreement between integrating the SDF into the Syrian army. And we also saw the disarmament of the call to disarm all the Kurds by their leaders in Turkey. Yeah. Right? And now which is a historic thing that's happening. So now both in Turkey and in Syria, there's this peace between the Kurds and the respective governments. So what's behind this?
It was an agreement between the Turks and the Americans. And they forced the Kurds into that. The Kurds didn't like it, but the Kurds have to take it.
But what do they get? Because they were just being destroyed before. They were committing terrorist acts. Like, what do they get?
They don't have a say. Like, their support is fully American. If America says no, it's no. Like, people need to understand negotiations. When you want to negotiate, you have to basically bring something to the table. What do they have on the Kurds? Nothing. Like, when you negotiate with no cards.
As Trump said, right? You don't have the cards.
He told Zelensky.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Kurds. The Kurds don't have cards either. When the Americans pull their hand out, pull their hand away from the Kurds will be dead. You see what I'm saying? So the Americans appeased the Turks, and the Turks, were happy with the deal. But what the Kurds got is one thing. What they got is that they got kind of like, almost like an autonomous right. That if push comes to shove, they're organized. Push comes to shove, they have, they will be integrated into the Syrian army. these same people basically can be pulled out in a second and cause a civil war in the future. So I think basically this is a card in the Americans' hands against any future Syrian government. So Syria is divided demographically.
Any moment just can be like Star Wars, execute Order 66, right? And you just got rid of the Jedi. So in this case, they can say if they want to just crash Syria, they can just say one thing and then people can just break into pieces.
Definitely.
Wow.
I mean, Syria is already divided but demographically. Right?
Yeah.
It's still unified from a political map perspective.
Yes.
But you have the Kurds. They already basically are unified and organized. You have the Alawites, been organized for a long time. And you have Druze now, basically, the Israelis are trying to organize them. So these three pieces of Syria can easily be snipped out.
Something interesting. I want to go to Gaza now. So we have the U.S. hostage envoy, Adam Bowler, if that's how you pronounce his name. He was negotiating the ceasefire with Hamas directly, right? Now the U.S., like similar to how Trump just basically kicked Zelensky out, spoke to Putin, and they're speaking to the Russians. Now they also kicked the Israelis to the side, and they're speaking directly to Hamas. And he actually mentioned, we're not subservient, we're not agents of Israel. So what's happening here?
The Israelis went berserk. They went crazy. Because how could the United States trespass the mediators and go speak to Hamas directly and sideline the Israelis?
Yeah.
Again, and as you can see, the American administration said directly, we are not subservient to you guys. It's this other way around. Like you guys need our help. We don't need yours, really. But the United States speaking to Hamas directly is a big smack to the Israelis. Again, you can see how the Americans and the Israelis are not aligned. Because the one who ruined the agreement who does not want the ceasefire?
Well, Netanyahu.
Yeah. It seems like the Israelis don't want the ceasefire. The Israelis want the war to continue so they can kill more, destroy more, and push the Gazans out of Gaza.
Well, they cut the electricity and the food and everything. Yeah.
But the Americans don't want that. The Americans, if they wanted it, they would have told their boy in Egypt to open the doors, let the Gazans out, and khalas. So, again, this is the Americans would never go speak to Hamas directly. Why would they do that? If they're really now, they would say themselves, "Oh yeah, we're negotiating with Hamas until Hamas, agrees to give some concessions." That's not true. Nothing changed with the Hamas position. Is the exact Biden position from the beginning, from that May-June of last year. They agreed to everything that the United States have given. The one who's disagreeing all the time is the Israeli side. And don't forget, we need to always basically take the political action more than the political words, because words could be just confusing, and they're there for many different reasons, right? Disinformation and public consumption. Why would the Americans go speak to Hamas directly? They're giving Hamas a higher level of a higher status.
Because he's always just sidelined them.
No, they would never. Before, they always had a mediator. The Qataris, the blah blah, the Turks, the Egyptians. Somebody would speak to Hamas. They wouldn't speak to Hamas directly.
Yeah.
Doing this is signaling to the Israelis, well, we're going to speak to Hamas directly, we're going to sideline you guys.
My question is, I was on Tucker Carlson, he was interviewing the Prime Minister of Qatar, and he asked him directly, why do you have a Hamas office in your country, right? And he responded very clearly, we'll show the clip here.
We have to go back to the root of this office, like why it's here in the first place. And Hamas office, when it was opened here in the first place, it was opened with full transparency and full consultation and actually even request from the U.S. And
the U.S. asked you to put a Hamas office here?
They have asked us to open the channels with them and to have an established communication channel with the same case what was applied to Taliban as well.
Okay, well, as you just heard, Prime Minister said clearly, on the request of the Americans, this office of Hamas was built. On whose request? The Americans. The Americans built the Hamas office in Qatar. So now, again, because it's Saudi Arabia, and he said it, I think, there's a post about Ibn Salman telling the Americans that we don't want Hamas to have a political role in Gaza. And again, that's part of basically cutting all the arms of Iran, because the Saudis see Hamas from that perspective, and also, they don't want all these movements anyway. So I think right now what they're trying to maybe discuss behind the scenes, how can they rule Gaza without trying to destroy Hamas, but isolating Hamas from a political position in the new Gaza government.
Because this ties into something interesting that, remember, Trump was using all the big words that I'm going to go and take over Gaza, make it a Riviera of the Middle East. And you mentioned that it was to potentially put pressure on the Middle Eastern countries to come up with the solution. Okay, throw the ball on their court, come up with something. So Egypt created a $53 billion Gaza plan, and where they, it was a 5-year reconstruction plan, which was interesting because the U.S. negotiation with Hamas mentioned a 5-year or 10-year ceasefire as well.
Yes.
And then as well, where Trump said, oh, this is lacking key security measures, particularly disarming Hamas. And then the U.S. envoy, Steve Witkoff, later softened the stance and said, this is a good first step. So it seems like a lot of things are coming together. Was Trump's tough talk to actually now, does it seem like it's working and pushing things along? Like, where do you see this going?
I don't feel basically the whole Riviera drama basically pushed this, but maybe it did. Maybe like there's certain Arab countries needed to be pushed, but I would say maybe the obstacle is Israel, not Hamas. Even there's reports that I read earlier today, that Hamas also agreed to to allow a new government in Gaza.
Yes.
That's made of fully independent people and people from the Palestinian Authority and free elections and so forth. So it seems basically they're pragmatic. Yeah, the only thing is that they want to keep their weapons, and I guess that's the only way to defend Gaza from Israel. If Hamas drops their weapons, Israelis will come in the next day. What would prevent Israel from is that? And that's why I think the Americans are okay with Hamas keeping its military side. And this is what pisses off the Israelis. The Israelis hate that, but the Americans say, well, we like that. We like Hamas staying as Hamas. This is Americans speaking. The Americans are saying they want Hamas to stay. Why? Because this is what secures Gaza from their perspective. Otherwise, they would tell everybody to leave and they will just destroy Hamas and kill everybody. But they don't want to do that. And this is where the misalignment between the Israelis and the Americans.
It'll be good to watch what happens next, definitely, on this
Yeah,
one.
we need to see the negotiations. But again, as I said, like the flexible side is always the Palestinian side. The Israeli side is the one who's always pushing back. And I don't know how much basically Trump will be very patient with them, but he was a little bit stronger at the beginning, and it seems basically something kind of made him a little bit now less aggressive. But let's see the negotiations. How do they go?
What makes you say that about less aggressive, and he was stronger before?
Because at the beginning he was like making orders. Now I feel basically things going back to like negotiations. So the Israelis are pushing back. At the beginning, I think Netanyahu was taken by surprise by how much Trump came and forced the first phase of the ceasefire. I mean, the first phase of the ceasefire was forced.
Yes.
So now, alhamdulillah, there's no killings, I guess. So it seems Trump like, okay, so as long as things are calm, we can negotiate things. And he's a business guy, so he's not gonna use force when it's not needed. Which is why basically things kind of like seemed to me went back to earlier negotiations. But as you can see, they're making firm things, like them speaking to Hamas directly. That was a bluff that was a big smack to the Israelis, but they're trying to make things work where Hamas stays in Gaza. That's what the Americans want, which is going to be very surprising to many people listening to this. But this is what it is. If the Americans wanted to destroy Hamas, it's very easy. You just open the gates from Egypt, you get everybody out, and you destroy the whole, strip. That's it.
So drawing this podcast to a close, I saw something interesting on the Times of Israel where they mentioned that as a report that Smotrich has been reportedly suspected of receiving military classified information from an IDF mole. And to the point where he was coming to meetings with full briefing, and he was like, I got it from the synagogue. And it seems like the Israeli media is attacking this guy a lot. Now, why is it that, because I think Smotrich is one of the people who's more to the right than Netanyahu, as far as I understand. So why is the media going after him? There seems to be like a rift now between Netanyahu and him. What would you make from that information?
No, I think the one who does not like Smotrich and Ben Gvir is Trump. The American administration's problems is not going to be with Netanyahu only, even though Netanyahu is leading this ship. But it's with those two people that the Americans see them as extremists, trying to, these guys speak about genocide openly against the Palestinians. They're like, look, this is, it's against American interests. I mean, as I said before, America has no problem with genociding anybody. Yeah, but it's not in their interest to genocide the Palestinians. Otherwise, they would have allowed it. I mean, they already allowed many genocide already. I'm saying like at a bigger scale.
Yeah. All right, Sheikh. Jazakumullah khairan for
Merci.
clarifying all these points.
Okay.
All right, guys. That draws the episode to a close. But Sheikh has one more thing to add to tell you guys.
Assalamu alaikum, guys. Well, to be honest, looking at these stats on YouTube, 6% of those who watch our episodes are subscribers. You have 94% who watch our episodes are not subscribed yet. So please help us grow this channel and subscribe right now so we can, inshallah, grow together. Barakallahu fikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah khairan.